Good morning. Today is October 25th, which is the day after my firstborn's birthday. So for all of you who know me that yesterday was very exciting. It's the day I became a mom 19 years ago. But I wanted to talk today about something that's really important to me that most of my friends know about me, but not everybody does. When you have a baby and everybody expects it to be like amazing and wonderful and perfect and beautiful, and it is all that. But the thing that people don't talk about is postpartum depression. So I'm a survivor of postpartum depression, severe postpartum depression. And I'm making this video public to feel free to share it because I feel like it's really not a topic discussed much, especially in the religious Jewish community. And it's only because of, the help that I got and my amazing husband that I'm here today to discuss it. And I really want to bring some light to this subject because 19 years ago, when I went through that, there was not a lot of help, and mental health and illness was really taboo. It still is in some communities, but it was really, really bad then. So just want to tell you my story, pretty brief because I don't want to keep this video too long. And if you have any questions, I'm very open about my story. Happy to discuss it. If you know somebody that's going through postpartum depression, please get them help. But I am also happy to talk to people. I know that I have spoken to so many people over the years, spouses, women themselves, and I know that I've saved lives by discussing it. So I'm really open to discussing it. 19 years ago, almost 20 years actually, Shmuel and I got married. It was really fast. Our first date was October 4th. We got married January 30th, so that's pretty fast. And then we had a baby October 24th. So a year and 20 days on the English calendar, and actually a year and 2 days on the Hebrew calendar. So I felt like we were basically strangers, and there's a lot more details to this. Again, happy to discuss with anybody, but I really didn't think that I would get pregnant right away. I was told that probably wouldn't. So to our surprise, after we got married, that I was pregnant very quickly. And Yossi was born almost a month early because I had gestational diabetes and was having some complications. So he missed our 9-month anniversary by a couple of days. He missed our 9-month anniversary by like a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. Anyway, he was born October 24th. My due date was November 7th. But he was very big, so people did not believe that he was early. But I promise he was early. Anyway, not the point of my video. So Shmuel and I were basically strangers. I remember sitting up in the middle of the night with this big belly, looking over at him, thinking like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I hope this works out. It was a very scary time for me. My parents were still living in Atlanta, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I had great friends here, but I was just nervous. Like this new marriage and hormones from being pregnant. It was just crazy. So I had this baby, and he was huge and beautiful. It's a lie. He was ugly. He was really ugly. Anyway, so I'm in the hospital, and I had this baby, and my mom was like the queen of breastfeeding and taught adoptive moms how to breastfeed. So it was really important to me that I would be able to nurse him. And he was born without the ability to suck, or he didn't know how, and we had to teach him. So it was very hard to get him to latch on and to nurse. And the nurses in the hospital were like, let's just give him formula. And I remember crying that they were killing my baby because this is how brainwashed I was. And I just felt like already in the hospital at like a day or two old, like this failure of a person. I was a nanny before I got married, and I babysat, and I can't tell you how many other people's kids that like I was a part of and I raised, and here I felt like my own kid I was letting down at 2 days old. And I think that for me that really started the depression. So my mom came from Atlanta. They were living in Atlanta then. She was there for the birth. And it was hard because I just wanted to nurse this baby and I couldn't. And then they sent us home on our way because, 2 days in the hospital or 48 hours, whatever is all you get. So I went home and I had no idea how to really feed this baby. I knew how to take care of a newborn because I was comfortable with babies, but wasn't nursing anybody else. So that was really scary and it was very, very hard. And we ended up I never supplemented. I pumped and we had to feed him like on a finger through like a tiny tube and special nipples from a bottle. And it was just tiring. And, new moms don't sleep and your body's going through this crazy change and you're just so tired and you just want to sleep. And it was a recipe for a disaster. He was jaundice, so we couldn't have his birth on time. His circumcision couldn't be on time. So my mom stayed a little bit longer, but then as soon as we were able to have his bris, my mom went back to Atlanta. And then my husband went back to work. And it was just me and this baby. And I loved him. Oh, there he is in the background. I loved him, but I just felt like totally disconnected. And it got worse and worse and worse as the days went on, as the weeks went on. Here I was, like, home alone all day with this baby who, thank God, was a great baby. I really firmly believe that if he was one of these shriekers, one of us wouldn't have survived. And I'm not saying that jokingly. It was really bad. He was such a good baby that I would just pick him up and feed him and put him right back down. I really didn't hold him a lot at the beginning. I just felt very disconnected, but in my mind I was so brainwashed that I had to nurse him. And that was just my connection to him. And I know this might be graphic for some people, but this is what postpartum depression looks like for some. But I would have visions of like, what would happen if I pick him up and I threw him against the wall? Would he like slide down the wall? Would he bounce off the wall? Like, these are real serious things. And when he would cry, I would just have these visions of me taking him and throwing him. And he was just so like little and helpless, but I just couldn't help myself. And thank God I never did it. I never hurt him. But I do see how postpartum depression can turn to psychosis very quickly. And it was really hard for me. It was really, really hard. And everyone's like, oh, it should be a perfect time. It should be a perfect time for you and your baby and your family. And it was so hard and miserable. And, we were just married for a little bit of time. And my husband would come home, Shmuel would come home, and I would have dinner on the table and everything would be perfect. I wonder if he really knew how miserable I was, or if he just thought everything was fine. But this went on for a while, and one day, I honestly can't remember the timeline, how old Yessie was. It was a rough time. But I remember handing Shmuel the baby, Yessie, and I said, I'm going out. Bye. And I didn't say I'm coming back. I didn't say when I'm coming back. I just said I'm going out. Bye. And I took the keys to the car, and I drove, and I drove, and I drove, and I was thinking, I'm going to end my life because my baby and my husband would be better without me. I'm a failure of a mom, I'm a failure as a person, and nobody needs me. And I took the car, and I drove, and I put my foot on the accelerator, and I was like headed for a tree, and I was going to drive my car into a tree. And at the very last minute, I realized that I probably wouldn't die. I would probably injure myself and maybe I would end up paralyzed. And for me, I'm like, that's not what I want. So I swerved and I went home and I walked in the door as if nothing happened. And I don't remember what happened the rest of the night, but I could tell you I really felt like, okay, like not like crying, sad depression, not like getting under my blanket depression, just pretending that everything was okay. And I was not. Sorry. And then I think like a couple of days later, maybe 1 or 2 days later, I was in the kitchen and I saw the knife block and I'm like, oh, I could just slit my wrists. Like, this would be so much easier. I could just slit my wrists. So I picked up a knife, and for all of you who know me, know I'm a little bit of a drama queen. So I picked up the chef's knife and I went to cut myself, and I don't know if I said something or if Shmuel happened to have seen me, but the next thing I really kind of remember was Shmuel wrestling the knife away from my hand. And he grabbed it so hard that I had an imprint of his hand mark on my arm for a couple of days. And he took the knife out of my hand, and we both just sat and cried. And he called my OB, and I will not say the name of the OB because of this part, but the OB said to my husband, I had a feeling that she might have had some beginning of depression. I could tell you, I left that OB right pretty soon after that. He should have said something. But anyway, he told Shmuel to take me to the hospital, and I refused to go. I said, I am not going to be admitted to the hospital. I'm not going. And if I'm alive, I'm going to nurse my baby, and the hospital is not going to let me take him. So I promised that the next day I would go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So that's what we did. The next day I walked into a psychiatrist's office. Again, I will not say his name because I do not think that what he did was good practice. But before I even sat down, he's like, I heard about you. I heard what's going on. You have postpartum depression. And he wrote me a prescription for Zoloft. And he said, take this and you'll be okay. And I'm like thinking to myself, okay, like I just tried to commit suicide or something or have visions of hurting my baby. And he just like kind of dismissed me and just gave me a prescription. And I left and that was it. And it was a very high dose of Zoloft. I was kind of numb for a while. I couldn't cry if I wanted to, but it really saved my life. And it definitely saved the life of Yessie. It definitely got better. I did find a different therapist and, we talked and it helped a little bit, but I can tell you that the medication is what worked for me. A lot of people don't like medication and I completely understand that. But the difference between postpartum depression and other type of depression, and again, I'm not a licensed therapist, so this is just my opinion. Postpartum depression is a chemical imbalance. It is a major thing your body's going through. You just birthed a life, in some cases, major surgery to have that life come out of you. So it was hard. It was rough, but there was nothing I could do about it. I took the medicine. And I took it for years. And I'm only here because Shmuel saw that knife in my hand and he was an amazing person. And after that, I think that before he may not have even realized how bad it was, he just stepped up and helped in any way possible. The big joke in our house is that I always say Shmuel brought me the baby in the middle of the night to nurse and he does not remember. We have 3 kids. He did it for every kid because the kids in our house do not sleep in our room. They are in their own cribs from day one. He would bring the babies to me every night. He does not remember, which means it really didn't disturb his sleep. So he was very involved, and that made a big difference. And then 3 years later, or I guess 2.5 years later, we decided that we're going to have another baby. And I went to look for a new OB, and she said that she would only take me if I agreed to go on Zoloft or a different medication at 36 weeks. And I agreed, and I've been with Dr. Cates ever since. Gila's turning 16 in 2 weeks. And I had a much different pregnancy, a much different postpartum. It was much better. I was on a lot of medication then, not as much as I felt numb with Yessie. But I needed it. It's what I needed. My doctor knew it. My husband knew it. I knew it at the time. And it was just what I needed to be a mom for both my kids. But when Gila was a couple of months old, I would say 6 months old, the opportunity came. They were in Annapolis. The Senate was, state Senate? Yeah, I think state Senate. Was, or Congress maybe? Sorry, I don't remember. They were discussing some new laws for postpartum depression, and somebody at Sinai knew about me because I reached out to her, and she asked if I would speak on behalf of all the women in Maryland and get some laws changed so that there's awareness about postpartum depression. And it was Ash Wednesday, I remember that, and Shmuel and I went, and telling my story in front of strangers was so hard. Telling strangers, like, I tried to kill myself because I gave birth to a baby and I was sad. And it should have been the happiest time of my life, but I had no idea what was going on. Nobody ever told me about postpartum depression. It was really hard because everyone's just like, oh, you have a new baby and there's so much happiness and all these things. And I was so overwhelmed and I was drowning and I was just so sad. And I felt like there was no light outside anymore. And I went and I spoke to all these strangers and I told them my story, and it was very hard. But they changed the laws in Maryland, and it's largely because of me. And I feel very proud about that. They apparently, I haven't only had one baby since, so I'm not really sure. But the law is that your significant other is supposed to get a checklist in the hospital of things to watch out for. Before you leave, the nurse is supposed to go over with you your feelings. It's not really so helpful because it's easy to lie, but at least it's something. And then 4 weeks or 6 weeks, a nurse from the hospital is supposed to check in on you. Now, again, it's not perfect, but it's something. And I do feel really, really lucky that I was able to participate in that. And I speak to everybody about my postpartum depression because you just don't know who it's going to save and who you're going to impact. And it's not something to be embarrassed about. You have no control over it. It is hormones. I could speak for myself, and I know that in the religious world, having a baby is a little more, I don't know, especially a boy, is a little harder because the first Friday night the baby's born, there's a party at your house or at somebody's house, and sometimes you're home for that, and it's overwhelming. There's like a million people going on, and you just had a baby, and you just want to rest, but you also have a million people in your house. And then there's the bris, which is like another party. And here it's like you are so tired and sleep deprived, and you're just partying, and it's a lot. And then there's this like stigma amongst some people, some circles, definitely not mine, and I don't really care about things like this, but to be back into your pre-baby clothes and all these things, and to have the picture perfect family on social media now, which did not exist when I had kids, or at least the first two. But it's real, and I encourage you to be aware of it, even if it's not for yourself, but watch out for your friends. If your friends are having babies, be aware, be positive, call them, see how they're doing, and really listen to them. Not just say, oh, how are you? Okay, fine, bye. Like, really listen to them, because it's really easy to pretend that everything's fine and when it's not. And, I know people jump to make meals for people, very helpful. But we live in a town and a day and age where you can get groceries delivered to your door. Food is not always what people need. Sometimes people just need you to come over and hold their baby so they can take a shower. I know I've done that for people before. Or even a nap. Can I come hold your baby for an hour or two so you can rest or get something done or go out? Can I run an errand for you? I would love to go and hold somebody's baby. If you have a brand new baby and you need someone to hold your baby, just call me. I will hold your baby. But anyway, I just really want to bring some awareness to postpartum depression. It's not something that we should shy away from. It's real. And if we talk about it, we will save lives. We will make it happier for people to be enjoying their babies. And that's it. So yesterday, again, was the 19 years since I became a mom. But really, I felt like it was important to come on here and discuss my journey. And again, if you have any questions or just want to talk, or if you have a story you want to share, I would love to hear. I think it's important to get this story out there and to talk about it. So again, I'm going to make this video public, and feel free to share it if you need. Great. My birthday's next week, so birthday parties continue. Have a great day. Bye-bye.